The Mighty series is a collection of children's books taken directly from the Word of God, arming this generation with the gospel, providing the undiluted Word of God, and empowering your family to live godly. The Mighty series shop is where you will find many of our products, including our 3 books: the biblical account of how Daniel overcame the lion's den, how David slew Goliath, and how Esther rescued God's people. There is also a coloring book and new releases coming soon. We can rise up as Bible-believing Christians and raise our children to be the men and women God has created them to be. Visit themightyseries.com to start shopping today.
It comes from China.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. That shit spread fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening as the numbers kept on climbing. Those funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown, they stayed to cover up and tried to put it down. When diseases get their start, from the swine to the SARS, tried to call it just a slip, but I blame the flatbed strip. Everybody was kung fu fighting. That shit spread fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening as the numbers kept on climbing. There was Liu and Liang trying to get the whistle blown. He said, "Here comes the virus," and now he's gone home. They forced the quarantine to contain COVID-19. It was probably too late to stop the spread of Chinese disease. Everybody was kung fu fighting. That shit spread fast as lightning. In fact, I feel my temperature rising, and I think my chest is tightening. Oh, no.
Say the term again. Kung Fu. It comes from China.
That is Stephen Crowder. I'm Jonathan Shuttlesworth. That's the Check the News music. Glad you got your shirt. Holly Willis. Hi, Heidi. Raina, Lisa, Kelly, Jesse, Connor, Sherry, Jesse again, Susan. Good to see everybody. Florida governor today won't let Louisiana people into their state. Who could blame him? Might not even have anything to do with the virus. Most murders per capita in the country. So it's not necessarily a bad move. And we love Louisiana. I just want to say that. Our friend Scott Adams, whether he knows he's our friend or not, had a great rant today. And what was he saying? Oh, yeah. How everybody now, which is another sign that this thing that, not that it's like over, like another person's not going to die, but that we're way on the other end of it, is that now the news is about what could have been done, not what we need to do now or what, it's passing. The cases are dropping steadily, hospitalizations, deaths going down on the rolling 7-day average, which is good news. And now you're starting to see all these people say what Trump should have done. So this is Scott Adams' response before they play it. Scott Adams, not a conservative, just a thinker. Very brilliant man. He's got if he has his normal set, his 3 best-selling books are behind him that are excellent books. And he's brilliant. So here's what he has to say about people that say what Trump should have done. We could have locked down. We could have closed. When you think about it, knowing what we know now, we could have closed the borders in 2006. But we didn't know. So here's what he has to say. Hit it.
So ProPublica, which is a publication, they've got a story talking about how if the United States had locked down sooner, let's say if the country had locked down 2 weeks earlier than it did, it could have prevented 84% of the deaths and 82% of the cases. This was said by a research team led by epidemiologist Jeffrey Shaman. So to Jeffrey Shaman and his team of epidemiologists, this would be a good time to ask your children to leave the room. If we could.
Back to me
or
real quick.
turn down your...
You don't have to ask your children to leave the room because Nick took the time to bleep out all the cursing. You're welcome. Enjoy.
sound a little bit, maybe put on some headphones. Because Jeffrey Shaman is not making me happy right now. And sometimes, when I'm not happy, I will use inappropriate language. I feel that moment is approaching. So you've been warned. So according to the team led by epidemiologist Jeffrey Shaman, if we had locked down 2 weeks early, we could have prevented 84% of our deaths. To which I say to Jeffrey Shaman, you stupid. Did the best we could. Did the best we could. Where were you? Where were you when it was time to lock down with your fucking stupid model? Thanks for coming after the crisis to stab the wounded. You useless piece of shit. This is the analysis we don't need. We don't need you bayoneting the fucking citizens while we're still alive. Can you let us just work through the fucking crisis without blaming people for making decisions they couldn't possibly have gotten right every time? 50 states with 50 different situations. Do you think anybody knew what to do? Nobody knew what to do. Don't give us your fucking after the fact. You weren't there. You weren't a leader. You didn't have to make any fucking decisions, Jeffrey fucking Shaman.
To me, it's funnier to hear a guy like blow his top that's like a real educated guy. You can tell doesn't really blow his top much. It's great. Well, we're not done with Mr. Scott Adams because now he has a prediction as to why Facebook is not going to be around in 5 years.
Why would they have bad intentions, right? So I think Facebook has good intentions about getting people the right medical advice because it matters. It's just not doable. It just isn't doable. So it's an impossible task, and therefore you have to ask why try, because they're going to be filtering good information with bad, and there's just no way to
That's
avoid it.
true, Colton.
So that's one question. But then the second question is, apparently they were taking down notices for anti-lockdown protests, at which point I say, wait a minute. An anti-lockdown protest, I get that there's a medical risk that involves with that, just getting together. But that's free speech. It's one thing that you're trying to be helpful in getting us the good and useful medical advice, but you don't know how to do it and you did it wrong. That's one thing. I can sort of almost kind of forgive you for trying hard to get the medical part right, but just not knowing how to do it because it's hard. Okay. But blocking a notice of a protest, a peaceful protest in the United States, Facebook needs to be destroyed. Facebook sort of crossed the line here, don't you think? If Facebook is suppressing political speech that's both legal and nonviolent and has a good purpose, I mean, nobody's looking for a bad purpose here. The protesters are looking to help the country, not hurt it. They have a different idea of what helps. You take that kind of speech down, if you're suppressing ordinary protest speech, you have lost your moral authority to exist in the United States. You can't coexist in our system and also be the primary vehicle of communication and suppressing people's free speech. Now, of course, you can argue, blah, 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 Scott, Facebook's not the government, they're a private company, well, public company, but they can do what they want, they're not the government, the First Amendment doesn't apply to the private companies. I hear you. I get that you're technically correct. You are technically correct. What is also true is if you're still using Facebook, why? Why does anybody use Facebook? So I have a Facebook account, and for, if I want to see if there's a picture of my stepdaughter or something on there, like I'll go and check that one thing. But why would you ever post on Facebook? Why would you go there for anything? I actually don't know. Like, that's an honest question. If I go to Twitter, I'm just filled with stories and ideas, and I'm getting informed, and I'm debating people, and I'm meeting people, and it's like this whole energetic situation where there's good and bad, but you certainly know why you're doing it. I don't know why anybody uses Facebook, do you? I can't think of a single reason. Now, I suppose if you have families and you want to show pictures, but is there really no other way to show pictures? You can't show pictures on Instagram. Twitter shows pictures. A lot of ways to show pictures. So I'm going to make a contrarian prediction on Facebook. I don't think it's going to last. I think Facebook could actually be a failed company in 5 years. And I think it would have to do with the fact that there's just something about it that doesn't work anymore. Now, do you get any kind of a dopamine hit from Facebook? I'm curious about that. Because if I look at, let's say if I look at Instagram, which of course is part of Facebook, but walled off. If I look at Instagram, I can get a dopamine hit from that. See some good pictures of some things I wouldn't see. It's interesting. If I go to Twitter, I can get all kinds of dopamine hits. I go to Locals, I get dopamine hits like crazy. For the creator, that's the highest dopamine hit, is Locals. But Facebook? When was the last time you went to Facebook and got a dopamine hit? Like it actually felt good? I don't know if I've ever felt that. So, since kids don't really use it, and I honestly don't know anybody who uses it, actually. I mean, I know people who use it, but not use it. Yeah, I think Facebook is destined to become an elderly person's product. That would be my guess. So I'm going to predict that Facebook, that the best part of their history is behind them, I think.
And that's coming from the man that predicted Donald Trump would be the president of the United States when he was one of the 15 Republican nominees for president. So it's not inaccurate with his predictions. I'll let you discuss in the comments if you think he's right. Within 5 years, Facebook will be an elderly person's product and a failed company. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Next. San Diego County update. Special guest at the podium is all of us right now as we open up. Mr. Justin Hart. Roll it.
Our San Diego economy back up and running. And so we're pleased to have with us here the president of the San Diego chapter of the California Restaurant Association, Jeff Rossman.
Thank you, Supervisor Fletcher. Woohoo! No, seriously. I can tell you with 100% certainty that not only restaurants but small businesses are extremely ecstatic today. We've been working as supervisors.
Public pressure against your governor works. That's San Diego County that responded to the pressure and opened up all of their restaurants. Good news. Next. Back to me. So here's not only the most gruesome thing you're going to see today, it's going to be one of the most gruesome things you ever see. This is a 20-year-old man beating an old man in a nursing home. And for some reason, this guy is not a caretaker. Thanks, Lori. I listened to you with Pastor Rodney over the last few weeks, but specifically tonight. He showed your message from last year at his church. You were in a tux. You know why I was in a tux? It was the only thing I had clean. What an awesome message you delivered. Thank you. $100. God bless you. Thanks for the nice words. Thanks for the money. Appreciate it. So anyway, this guy did not work at the nursing home. For some reason, he's a 20-year-old being stored at a nursing home in Detroit. You know, if you have a loved one in the nursing home, might want to consider putting a couple of cameras up in their room. the hidden kind that the staff doesn't know about. Here's what happened. You know, President Trump just tweeted right now, this can't be real. Actually, I'll pull up his tweet and tell you exactly what he said. Somebody give another 100? Did you mean to give twice? If not, I'll get, I don't know, can I get her money back? I don't know. We can make it happen, Larry. Please tell me you didn't double click the 100 by accident. I'm giving you a 1 hour window to get your money back. What did President Trump say? Wow, did he actually tweeted on his, no, there it is. Is this even possible to believe? Can this be for real? Where is the nursing home? How is the victim doing? I don't know how the victim's doing. I don't think he died. But they arrested the guy. Matt Walsh said they should tie his arms behind his back and have a professional boxer punch him in the head as many times as he hit that guy, and then if he survives, throw him in prison for the rest of his life. I don't disagree. Next. So great to see South Florida restaurants filling up and the staff putting money in their pockets. How power-obsessed must you be to still be advocating shutdowns? John Cardillo. Next. Abortion is health care, says woman who apparently thinks health care means tearing a human being limb from limb. Next. Every believer in the free society needs to read this and understand this. How a free society deals with pandemics according, let's read it. According to, okay, so this is according to, up a little bit? Up. According to legendary, why do I, this, always because I said it wrong for like 2 weeks and then it like trips me up. To legendary epidemiologist and smallpox eradicator Donald Henderson, how a free society deals with pandemics. Let's read. Economists have been writing for hundreds of years on the role of government in solving economic and social problems. A theme has emerged throughout. Policy officials are quite often ill-informed or have bad incentives compared with what individuals, markets, institutions, and society can achieve on their own. Economists have documented how government intervention leads to various unintended economic consequences and even human rights abuses. Back to me. Do you know why we didn't need to lock down? Do you know why Sweden didn't lock down? Because you don't need the government stepping in and telling you what to do. Is it in a government's best interest for a ton of people to get COVID-19 in their business? And people say, you know what? I'm almost positive I got sick when I was at that gross place that was packed with sweaty people. No, it's not in their best interest. So for the business's own best interest, they find ways to mitigate risk while keeping their business open, and usually the solutions they come up with are better than, not usually, like every time, than what the morons running the government would do. Total, with a few exceptions. Ron DeSantis, Governor Abbott, that beautiful angel of a woman in South Dakota, and I'm probably leaving a few people out. But the brain-dead people that still have their states in lockdown, even after seeing Sweden and everything else, no plan on how to get out of it. If you leave the private sector to take care of their own business, they do a better job than the government. Let me finish the article. We prefer private governance to public governance. We've applied this logic against socialism, fascism, war, macroeconomic planning, public goods, monetary policy, counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Man, I'm doing good. Environmental regulation and 100 other issues. We've made a solid case for pure freedom. And yet here we are living in times when the state is controlling our movements, shuttering businesses, defining who and what is essential, dangerously disrupting supply chains, forcibly closing schools and churches, and restricting travel. A shelter-in-place order is something of a liberal nightmare. The worst possible use of coercive power against individual rights, and the results have been catastrophic. It's my view that we have been ill-prepared to deal with this onslaught. We have a very thin record of writings that make the case that freedom, market forces, and private governance are better than government quarantines and closures in dealing with pandemics. So where do we turn for better arguments and a better case? Part of the problem is that economists, historians, and political philosophers People are telling us to stay in our lane and not comment on medical matters. In general, that is good advice, but there's a problem. The computer scientists and theoretical physicists who dreamed up this lockdown haven't really had serious medical training either, and they sure haven't stayed in their lane. They certainly have cared very little for the economic implications of their plans. Where do we turn for competent commentary on the medical aspects of quarantine and lockdowns? Where's our credentialed and experienced expert who can provide weighty evidence that this is the wrong course? Let me introduce you to Donald A. Henderson. Born 1928, passed on 2016. He was the 20th century's most acclaimed disease eradicator. In particular, he is credited with ridding the world of smallpox. He was born in Lakewood, Ohio, the state with the worst, most annoying drivers of all 50 states, and it's not even close. Son of a nurse and an engineer. He went to Oberlin College for undergraduate and graduated in medicine from the University of Rochester. He trained 2 more years at the Epidemic Intelligence Service of the Communicable Disease Center and moved to Geneva to head the World Health Organization's division focused on smallpox. I encourage you to read his entire biography posted at Johns Hopkins, where he headed a brilliant epidemiological team. In 2006, at the order of the Bush administration, some computer science programmers with a small group of public health officials began to resurrect a pre-modern idea of quarantines, closures, and measured lockdowns. Though this way of thinking is not just pre-modern, it turned the logic of modern medicine on its head. It was based on a theory that we should just run away from viruses. Whereas Dr. Henderson's whole life had been devoted to implementing the great discovery of modern virus theory, that we need not flee, but rather build immunity through science, either natural immunities or via vaccines. At the age of 78, Dr. Henderson swung into action and composed a masterful response to the new fashion for quarantines and lockdowns. The result was disease mitigation measures in the control of pandemic influenza. That's actually what we were going to name our daughter. Henderson, though, listed last, was the primary author, along with co-authors Thomas Inglesby, epidemiologist Jennifer Nuzzo, and physician Tara O'Toole. She sounds like a dancer at like a speakeasy in 1919. Here is the riveting conclusion. Experience has shown that communities faced with epidemics or other adverse events respond best and with least anxiety when the normal social functioning of the community is least disrupted. Strong political and public health leadership to provide reassurance and to ensure that needed medical care services are provided are critical elements. If either is seen to be less than optimal, a manageable epidemic could move towards catastrophe. Below, we provide a full version of the article. It should help us all better manage epidemics in the future. Abstract. The threat of an influenza pandemic has alarmed countries around the globe and has given rise to an intense interest in disease mitigation measures. This article, The threat of influenza pandemic, especially one caused by some variant of the highly pathogenic H5N1 avian strains, has alarmed countries around the world. There is universal agreement that the key to influenza prevention is vaccination, and both funds and research are now being expanded in pursuit of an effective vaccine. However, producing a satisfactory vaccine will take at least 6 months after a new strain emerges that is demonstrably capable of causing a pandemic. Antiviral drugs offer hope of preventing some cases and possibly diminishing the severity of the disease if they're given within 24 to 48 hours after the onset of symptoms. But supplies of these drugs are limited. Thus, towards the end, possible measures that have been proposed include isolation of sick people in hospital or at home, use of antiviral medications, hand washing and respiratory etiquette, large-scale or home quarantine of people believed to have been exposed, travel restrictions, prohibition of social gatherings, school closures, maintaining social distance, and the use of masks. Thus, we must ask whether any or all of the proposed measures are epidemiologically sound, logistically feasible, and politically viable. It is also critically important to consider possible secondary social and economic impacts of various mitigation measures. Over the years, various combinations of these measures have been used under epidemic and pandemic circumstances in attempts to control the spread of a flu. However, there are few studies that shed light on the relative effectiveness of these measures. A historical review of communities in the United States during the 1918 influenza pandemic identified only 2 that escaped serious mortality and morbidity. Both communities had completely cut themselves off for months from the outside world. One was a remote town in the Colorado mountains, and the other was a naval training station on an island in San Francisco Bay. Obviously, this is not a strategy of general utility. Other studies have suggested that except in the most extreme applications, disease mitigation measures have not had a significant impact on altering the course of an influenza pandemic. You heard that? Except in the most extreme applications, disease mitigation measures have not had a significant impact on altering the course of an influenza pandemic. So here's a long article that you can read the rest of at your leisure. Let me see the title of it again. How a Free Society Deals with Pandemics, according to legendary epidemiologist and smallpox eradicator Donald Henderson. Scroll down. Go to the original tweet that we took it from. So you can look at Jeffrey A. Tucker on Twitter. It's on AIER.org, How a Free Society Deals with Pandemics. So all the people make you sound like you're a moron if you want to go outside and you're getting your hair cut above human lives. There's one of the best epidemiologists of all time that disagrees with the morons arguing with you on Facebook. Next. CDC now. Aside from close contact with infected individuals, the coronavirus does not spread easily. I took the time to read the article for you. You know what the CDC is telling you now? That all the stuff about leaving your Amazon packages outside for at least a day and making sure somebody doesn't handle your groceries is bullcrap. That basically the only way that it spreads is person-to-person contact. You don't have to freaking wet wipe everything every second. Next. Little fun at Walmart. Little professional wrestling at Walmart. In my experience, no one has less fun at a Walmart than white families, and nobody has more fun at a Walmart than black families. Not saying you have to agree with me, just my personal. Look at the white guy walking by. They're having a full-out WrestleMania 3. Do you think people are ready to go outside or what? Oh, he's gonna, oh! Next. Now here's a fight at a Home Depot in Tampa, Florida. A paint fight. It's on. They're having fun or they're mad? Because they didn't get any on the truck. Make sure you have your mask on, though. Oh, they did get some on the truck. Never mind, they're mad. Good chance that about 30% of the people involved are related to my wife. Next. Old Governor Prickster. Illinois governor withdraws emergency rule criminalizing business owners. So they pushed back on him, and he's backing down. Something he's never done from an all-you-can-eat buffet. Next. This is very interesting. COVID-19 death stats, this is significant. I agree. Let's see it. Interesting. Democrat states, population 104.8 million. Republican states, population 103.1 million. Total deaths in Republican states, 9,107. Total deaths in Democrat states, 70,144. Do you think that maybe there's a way to manipulate how you count COVID deaths? Just a thought. Next. Let's keep praying, guys. Good news out of London. Pastor Brad Norman links to Apple News. London records no new coronavirus cases for a full 24-hour period. Good job, London. Good job, Pastor Brad Norman, for getting the info out. Next.
One of the things I want to do is get the churches open. The churches are not being treated with respect by a lot of the Democrat governors. I want to get our churches open.
You Democrats, look up here.
Good job, President Trump wants to get the churches open. Been saying that for 2 months, but we'll stick with you. Next. Dr. Sunatra Gupta, professor of theoretical epidemiology at the University of Oxford. You know what she has to say? To me, that suggests that much of the driving force here was due to the buildup of immunity. I think that's a more parsimonious explanation, gosh, I wish I knew what that word meant, than one which requires in every country for lockdown. For various degrees of lockdown, including no lockdown, that have had the same effect. So she says that COVID-19 is on the way out, and there's no need to lock down anymore. Who is she? Oh, just some nobody that's the professor of theoretical epidemiology at the University of Oxford. So your friend Brenda that thinks you're insane, that you want to go out and you want the state to open up, just let her know that a certain Dr. Sunitra Gupta, professor of theoretical epidemiology at the University of Oxford, who's much smarter than her, agrees with you. Next.
Mr. President,
Thank you.
No, we skipped one. CNBC just put on a masterclass in how to lie with statistics. The channel just reported that coronavirus cases surged 82% after Georgia reopened. Now here's a picture of the data. Does that look like an 82% surge or no trend? There's when they reopened it, the red arrow. It's gone down or it's the same. Next.
Mr. President, are you prioritizing the reopening of churches over other establishments?
No,
and what
but
makes
I think
churches more
churches to
important?
be, they're so important in terms of the psyche of our country. Beyond, to me, they use the word essential. I think churches are essential. It's so important. People want to be in their churches. It's wonderful to sit home and watch something on a laptop, but it can never be the same as being in a church and being with your friends. And they want to have it opened, and I think that's going to be happening very shortly, very, very shortly. So that'll be put out maybe tomorrow, maybe today. Okay?
Next. The Minnesota Catholic Conference and the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod of Minnesota have publicly declared that they will resume in-person worship services on May 26, regardless of what their stupid governor has to say. Next. Trump says he won't close the country if a second wave, even if the thing spikes again, he will never close the country again. Excellent. Everything's going exactly according to plan. Next. Department of Justice. Democrats paid Pennsylvania election officials to stuff the ballot box. We have the article? All right, let's read. Usually Breitbart's pretty short because they know the average Trump supporter either can't read or can't read for very long. A former judge of elections in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, has been charged and pleaded guilty to illegally adding votes for Democratic candidates in judicial races in 2014, 15, and 16. On Thursday, the Department of Justice announced charges against former judge of elections, Dominic DeMuro. Should have known he was mob-connected just from the name. Dominic the Chin DeMuro, 73, for stuffing the ballot box for Democrats in exchange for payment by a paid political consultant. Gee, really? There's political corruption in the city of Philadelphia? So that's a problem. Next. 11-year-olds asked to define transgender pornography and hardcore pornography as part of their schoolwork. This is in England. This was an assignment for 11 to 14-year-olds. Define sexuality, define drag queen, define heterosexual, define homosexual, define transvestite, define transgender pornography. Very important skills for life. Define pornography, define soft porn, define hard. So what happened was these 11-year-olds The few that didn't even know what it meant looked it up on Google. Horrified, the ones that still have parents were horrified, and the teacher said he's sorry, he didn't realize that would happen. Hopefully, this lockdown will permanently cripple the public school system. Something new can get raised up in its place. Next. How long will churches say it's not an attack against them? Says Jessica. I think most of them have woken up by now. This is what the CDC put on their Facebook page or their website today. 2 symptomatic people attended gatherings in a small Arkansas church in early March. Of the 92 church members who attended the gatherings, 35 were later confirmed to have COVID-19, which led to 3 deaths. Through contact tracing, an additional 26 confirmed cases were identified in the community. The outbreak highlights the potential for widespread. So look how they're trying to make the case, singling out churches. Look at the bottom. 2 symptomatic people attended church events March 6th to the 8th when everything was open. Later tested positive for COVID-19. At least 35 of 92 attendees acquired COVID-19, 3 deaths. From contact with church cases, at least 26 additional cases were confirmed, 1 death. Can I tell you something, CDC? That's bullcrap. There is no way, just because 2 people had COVID-19 who attended a church, that A, you can say they got it at the church, or B, that the other people got it from them at the church. Unless you can prove that for 2 weeks they never left the church grounds. Now, if you can prove that from March 6th through the 8th, the whole group of them stayed there through April 15th or whatever, then you got a point. But you can't prove it. You can't prove that. It's amazing how churches, these people all go to the church and they got it, and then other people got it. How do you know they didn't get it from? If getting coronavirus at church is the problem, how come China's had such a problem with coronavirus? They don't have any houses of worship of any kind. Full of crap. Well, I know there's one church that remained open and 30 of their people got coronavirus. And they got it at the church, and you know that? Were you walking around with a microscope and you saw the coronavirus jump on them from there? You know they didn't get it at Walmart. They didn't get it from their gross uncle. They didn't get it from the gas station. Give me a freaking break. Bunch of brain-dead people at the CDC should pull up all their tweets saying that you don't need masks, you do need masks. The head of the World Health Organization saying there's no evidence of person-to-person transmission. Kiss off. Next. Defiant New Jersey pastors. They're waking up. Minnesota, New Jersey. They've had enough. A handful of New Jersey pastors say they're reopening in defiance of Governor Phil Murphy, which we would never call anyone a rat bastard on this show. But if we did, we would call Governor Phil Murphy a rat bastard. But we would never do that because we're Christians. We try to treat people with respect. Stay-at-home orders. Good job, pastors. Next. Back to me real quick. You remember the old barber that they stripped his barber's license in Michigan from that? We would never call anyone a Nazi on this program. Governor Whitmer will just say her heart's full of darkness. She took the 77-year-old man's barber license. Now all the barbers went on the State House lawn and are cutting hair. Let me tell you, that's a cool haircut place. Next. Whew, more pastors have had enough. So I'm tearing up this cease and desist order right here, he said. This is a Maryland pastor that was given a cease and desist order, and he took it up to the pulpit, started preaching about Pharaoh letting the people go, riled himself right up, and ripped up the cease and desist letter right on live stream. People have had enough. Next.
The right to have your own opinions, to think for yourself, to disagree with your elected leaders, with politicians, was the most basic right that every American enjoyed for 240 years. It was the signature right of this country. And then came coronavirus and big tech, and it was all swept away. Dr. Newt Wachowski, for example, is the former head of biostatistics, epidemiology, and research design at Rockefeller University. Not a light resume. He believes that massive lockdowns, mass quarantines, were a mistake, and he expressed this view online. Here's part of it.
What do you think are the possible health risks of the policy that we are following now, the shelter in place?
Well, we will see maybe a total of fewer cases. That is possible. However, we will see more cases among the elderly because we have prevented the school children from creating herd immunity. And so in the end, we will see more death because the school children don't die, it's the elderly people who die. We will see more death because of this social distancing.
Now, keep in mind that no one in history has ever attempted mass quarantines. We had no idea what would happen once we did. So what we really needed was a vigorous and informed debate about potential outcomes. Imagine if our political leaders had followed the advice you just saw instead of Tony Fauci's. We might not be facing a global depression right now. It's a point of view that we should have heard, whether we followed it or not, but we didn't hear it. That video was deleted by Google off its YouTube platform. It was censored, like many other videos in which doctors dared to criticize the lockdowns. Why is that? There's only one reason. Google decided that disagreeing with the government is forbidden. What will happen when that standard is applied to other issues? How long before this show is censored, before you're censored, before freedom of thought and expression disappear in this country? Do you want to live in a place like that? That's where we're going, fast. Harmeet Dillon sees it up front every day. She's a civil rights attorney at the forefront
back to me real quick.
of the fight against censorship.
Want to know who offered to give me help and helped me when I decided to do that Easter service in Pennsylvania? And risk the rest? That angel right there that you're about to see, Harmeet Dillon, probably the smartest, awesomest, coolest lady in the history of planet Earth.
And we're always happy to have her on the show. Harmeet, I know you're not, I'm not even going to ask you, I know you're not surprised
Back to
by
me real
this,
quick.
but
Tough broad. Like the toughest. And smart. And cool.
give us a sense of the scope of the censorship now in progress.
Well, Tucker, the word Orwellian is sometimes overused in this space, but it is really, truly chilling the extent to which the government is now working with our big tech overlords to silence our speech on very important issues. And, you know, you and I both talked about this before. We said if they were allowed to do this in China and America turned a blind eye, they would do it here in America. It happened much sooner than I thought.
That's right.
And what you're seeing here is it's very odd. So I've gone to court for the Center for American Liberty to get the right to protest against some of these orders in the California Capitol. And the governor banned all outdoor protest. And the state comes into court and they say, don't worry, Judge, it's okay to ban that protest because people can go protest online. You know, which is, of course, silly because you can only communicate online to people who you already know and are friends with. But what if you can't even do that? That's where the other shoe is dropping now. You can't even communicate and protest online. And people are going to die because of this. And more importantly, our civil rights are being ratcheted down in one direction. And, you know, the government doesn't get off scot-free here. Now, when people sue, like Prager University and others have sued YouTube for taking down their videos, you know, it is a private company. There's certain leeway there. But where the government is actually instructing and conspiring, which is happening with some of these states contacting and working with Google, Facebook, Twitter, and others to say take down the misinformation, that is the government using these tech companies as their tools. And all of a sudden, it's a whole different scenario in terms of legal liability, as well as in terms of the horrible impact on Americans, Tucker.
This is the most un-American thing I can imagine. I think it's the most direct threat to our liberties that I've seen in my 51 years. Very quickly, why aren't the media outraged by this?
Well, the media are left for the most part, Tucker. And secondly, the media got a free pass out of this lockdown. So churches, no. Protests, no. Media, yes. So their different rights have different levels of protection under the First Amendment, according to the government. So you're never going to hear this. They like people being put in their place. We see this every day on the news screens.
They're going to try and censor Fox News next. You watch. save the tape, if you can. Harmeet, great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tucker.
It is great to see you, Harmeet, you human angel. Next. I will help pay the fines of Chicago churches that defy the tyrant prickster. Fat prickster. And hold services. Church is essential. Worship Jesus the King. No more lockdowns. Charlie putting his money where his mouth is. Next. School gave children an assignment where they had to define trans porn, hardcore porn, and other explicit terms. Some pupils researched these words online, leading them to be exposed to sexual material. England, get a grip. Next. Always Democrats. Always. Next. Joe Biden struggles to use a cell phone. I've not watched this yet. Let's watch together.
Just Bruce. Keep it casual. I got it. I got 5 of them. You got something to choose from. I gave her 5 choices.
This is Congresswoman Abby. Thank you. Now we're calling. I'm actually sitting next to our Vice President Joe Biden right now, and I know the Biden team's reached out to you. Just wanted to let you know I endorsed the Vice President actually yesterday. Okay, so we can just hang up and then call the next. So right here.
Next. Joe Rogan has confirmed that YouTube censorship, particularly with regard to the platform deleting content by doctors challenging the official coronavirus narrative, is partly what prompted him to move his podcast to Spotify. Joe Rogan tells Alex Jones he's going to war. Rogan snubbed YouTube as a strike back against censorship. Let me tell you, people are going to follow him over there. It's going to be a domino effect on YouTube. That's probably their biggest account, off the top of my head. I could be wrong. Who's that? Logan Paul? No. Oh, the gamer. Yeah, and he'll probably leave. They've been hard on him, right? Good riddance, Mr. YouTube and Facebook. Well, I'll be kind until I get my own platform. 3 weeks out. YouTube and Facebook, you guys are great. Keep up the great work. Next. Latest testing stats from San Diego. We almost hit the 5,000 mark for the original Newsom requirement. Notice how impossible it would be to get to 0.5%. What are the one of the many other original stats he dropped? And also 2%. What are the 300 plus contact tracers they hired going to do? There's not enough people for them. And you remember the title is Why You Don't Have to Worry About Contact Tracers? I'm going to tell you. Number one, the virus is dying out. Now I'm going to tell you the rest. Next. If you can't trust your state to correctly count COVID-19 deaths, how can you trust them to correctly count mail-in votes? Next. How awful. Confirmed Governor Whitmer begs Michiganders not to travel to their summer home. Then her cars are seen parked outside of her summer home. That's right. Different rules for me than for thee. Typical socialist. You know, we wouldn't want to call somebody a dark-hearted witch, but we'll just go with Governor Whitmer. Next. It has become a war on our economy. Here's how you know it's the governors that want to stay locked down are fighting a losing battle. This is front page of, can I see it? New York Post, or what is it? Yep, today. One man's plea, the Big Apple is dying, its streets are empty, tens of thousands have been plunged into poverty. Our leaders have no plans, no answers. New Yorkers have already learned to socially distance. Businesses can adjust. The elderly and infirm can continue to be isolated. It needs to end now. Columnist David Marcus on the devastating lockdowns. Front page of the New York Post. Next. Basically, this virus specifically targets people who are within a year of dying. Dem governors didn't care about them and let them die. They obfuscated the details, and used them as a justification to lock down an entire country. From the Neil Ferguson, you remember him, He's the guy that came up with a model that was millions of deaths off, then was doing bad things with somebody else's wife during the lockdown. I was trying to think of a nice way to say what I was going to just blurt out. By the end of the year, what proportion of those people who died from COVID-19 would have died anyway? Listen to this, according to the guy that made the models. By the end of the year, what proportion of those people who died from COVID-19 would have died anyhow? Because it might be as much as half to two-thirds of the deaths that we're seeing from COVID-19. So of the older people, of the people who died of COVID-19, half to two-thirds likely would have died before the end of this year. Do you know there's 40,000 nursing home deaths every month in the United States? So when they give you the number of people who died, it sounds shocking because you compare it to zero. You know, it's like if I told you I lost, it's a crude, you don't want anybody to die, ever. So this is a crude analogy. But it's like if I say, you know, it'd be like if you spent $1,000 on a purse, but your husband already told you it's okay for you to buy a purse. Okay, this is a terrible example because now all the feminist people are mad at me because you had to get permission from your husband to buy a purse. Let's say it like this. If you were going to buy a car, no matter what, and you ended up getting an $80,000 car when you were only going to get a $55,000 car, and somebody says, you spent $80,000 on a car, but you only spent $25,000 more than you were going to spend. So if you compare it to zero, it's a lot. When you realize that there was already going to be an amount, and that's what they're pointing out in this article, and I'm sure they did a much better job of pointing it out than I just did with my crappy analogies. Next. Nearly half the accounts, this is something I wish Christians would understand. Nearly half the accounts tweeting about the coronavirus pandemic are likely bots. Carnegie Mellon researchers say, adding that the tweets appeared aimed at sowing division in America. Back to me. Did you know about half the time that somebody wants to argue with you on Twitter, it's a fake account? When you look at them and they don't have a real picture, and they're following like 175 people, and they're being followed by 80 people, and they just argue, and you think, how could they think I said that? You're dealing with a fake thing that's just meant, either it's a real person under a fake account just trying to get Americans arguing with each other, or it's an actual bot that just is designed to take what you said, misinterpret it, and argue with you, like a computer program. And you spend your day arguing with them. Next. There have been 3 civil rights movements in America. Oh, we can't play this, right? There have been 3 civil rights movements in American history. I believe we're seeing a 4th one right now, but we must learn the lessons of the past. And this is one thing that you're going to see come out of this. Because what do you think is going to happen when this all does lift very shortly? Well, now the church has woken up. Business owners have woken up. Privacy, people that were concerned about privacy, vaccine, they don't call them anti-vaxxers anymore. What do they call them? Vaccine awareness. All those groups now see that all of their fears have been realized. They're going to fight and fight and fight until laws are passed to safeguard this ever happening again. I know I am. Next. Former World Health Organization doctor says coronavirus cases are not increasing as they thought they would after the lockdown. It's almost as if the lockdown between Sweden and the countries that are now reopening and the states that are now reopening, it's almost as if the lockdown had no effect. Next. Do you remember the Mississippi pastor that the police targeted and it drew all the media attention to his church? Let's look at the pictures. They didn't burn his church down. They blew his church up. Keep scrolling. That's how you spell hypocrites if you speak Mississippi. Bet you'll stay inside now, you hypocrites. And let me tell you, the mainstream media is fully to blame for that. You shined a spotlight. You made people feel like they were doing the world a favor if you killed those people. In a typical Pentecostal church, they're a target for the whole world and won't spend $100 to install security cameras and $40 a night to have a security guard. I don't understand my own people, to be honest with you. Never. How do you have your church a target like that? You don't have any security, no cameras. Typical Pentecostals. We need to pray. No, hire a security guard and a Rottweiler. Brother Schambach used to have people sleep underneath the tent by the equipment with sawed-off shotguns. Next.
You can record. I don't need you.
Back to me.
Set it up?
Okay, the title of tonight, which if you stuck with me this far, congratulations. Because we're going to go through why you don't have to worry about contact tracers and more, which I'm applying to America. If you're in other countries, like what you're going to see, this is in Canada. These are two older people that tested positive and don't want to go to the hospital. So the Minister of Health shows up with 3 or 4 police officers. Very disturbing.
I don't need you.
Do you want to set it up? Am I okay to talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So as a result of speaking to my partner yesterday, there's concerns. I prefer to stand if you're okay with that, please and thank you. After speaking to my partner yesterday, there's some concerns for your safety, right? We understand what your standpoint, right? The reason why you're doing what you're doing is to take a stand against the city, correct?
Not the city. Government.
The government. Okay, yes, the government.
You come in here like this. Mm-hmm. Are we so dangerous to you? Look at us.
I hope not. I hope everything goes smoothly.
Why did you come at 8 o'clock? It's our time to go to sleep, actually.
My apologies. My apologies for coming at a time that's not convenient for you.
But why did you come?
I was going to let you know. You had some questions for me. And now, the reason why I'm telling you why we were here, my colleagues came out yesterday. They submitted a report based on your interactions. We have some concerns for your well-being and your safety. Okay?
Thank you.
So,
it's very nice of you.
It's so nice of you. It's so hypocritical, actually.
What I'm here to let you know is that based on the concerns that were put forward yesterday with your report, we have contacted a judge, and the judge has issued what's called a Form 2. What that is to do, and it directs me, as being a police officer, that I'm to take both of you to St. Joseph's Hospital right now for an examination.
No way.
No way.
Unfortunately, I don't have that. We don't have that discretion.
You have no right.
You have no right to do that.
You have no right.
That's what this is for. I can let you know. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a form through the Ministry of Health that's been backed by a provincial judge.
We don't care about.
Okay, that's neither here nor there if you care or not. This is my authorities, and this is what I have to do.
Wow.
So I beg of you to come cooperatively.
No.
So you're not going to come cooperatively.
You're not authority.
Okay.
Our God is authority. You cannot do this.
I respect that for you. Unfortunately, my standpoint and my position is that I'm paid to enforce this. Okay, this is my job. This is my job. This is my role. I have an obligation.
Wow,
I took an oath to serve and protect.
You're really
and just to let you know, I'm here to protect you. The reason why I want to take you there is to protect you guys, to make sure that you're safe. Wow. So what happens is we go to St. Joseph's Hospital.
You speak
to the doctor. You speak to the doctor. Okay. I don't believe I am. That's your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion.
You're evil.
Okay. That's your opinion. You don't know me.
Forcefully to take us to hospital.
Well,
Are you kidding me?
I don't want to do it forcefully. That's why I'm hoping that you'll assist me. That you'll accompany me.
That's a hypocrite.
Why am I a hypocrite?
Because you're forcing me.
Because you're saying it's for our safety.
What this is saying, yes, you're right. This is forcing us to make you go to the hospital. That's right. That's what these are.
We don't hear. Who sentences us?
So what I'm asking is that you come cooperatively.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well,
no.
I would rather not go hands-on with you. I don't want to force you physically.
Wow.
This form, guys, and I'm a mental health worker, okay? I'm not a police officer. This is an involuntary examination at hospital. What this means is it's not in the police discretion any longer, or as a mental health worker, this form is valid, signed off by a justice of the peace. They cannot walk away. It's involuntary examination, not admission, examination. So what we're asking is we're asking for cooperation. You're going to go down, you're going to be seen at the hospital, and you're going to meet with the doctor. That is what that form
You are very
says.
sick.
So, like the officer is asking today, we would really like if you
This
please
is intrusion.
There's not
We're not a threat. We are not
You're all
threat.
fascist in this case. You take us forcefully.
Again, you're absolutely entitled to your opinion. I'm an unbiased source, and I'm doing this strictly for the concern of your safety. And that's why I hope that you will
Are we threat to anyone?
You will pay.
Just some advice. The easier that things go right now, the easier things can go at the hospital. This has nothing to do with your standpoint, your beliefs, what's going on with your standpoint with the government, your
You're
taxes.
forcing our
That has
body
nothing to do with any
to
of that.
move somewhere it's already forced.
Yes, we are. We are. We agree. We are.
Against our will.
We don't want to have to physically force you, okay?
I don't have
We
to
haven't-
listen to you.
Well, you do, sir, because otherwise we have to go hands-on, we have to handcuff you and put you in the back of a cruiser. We don't want
Because
to do
you're
that.
not my authority. Because you're not our authority. Our authority is God.
We're acting under our authority, okay?
I don't care.
And I respect that you don't
I don't
agree
care.
with that authority,
I don't care.
but we do have that authority, okay? So who wants to go first? So this is going to happen, folks, but it's just a matter of how you
Barefoot.
you want to go barefoot? Okay. Can you stand up, please, sir?
However you want.
Can you stand up, please?
Come
No,
on.
you have to stand up.
Can you stand up, please? Please do this. I beg of you, one last time I'm going to ask you. Stand up on your own. Okay. Just put your hands behind your back, please. Thank you.
You're sick people. Fathers did this, a long time ago, and a long time ago they persecuted our brothers and sisters.
Is that okay? Is that too tight?
Ma'am, would you like a bag or anything?
Put them on.
Just socks and flip-flops for later, or shoes for yourself?
We're going to pay for this. You,
Can you stay still in the walk?
What you guys want to do about the dog?
you will pay for this.
I don't think that was from COVID-19. I think that's an old video because there's no masks or gloves or anything. But it shows you when you allow the erosion of your rights and nationalized health care, it's a major problem. So why did I title this, Why You Don't Have to Worry About Contact Tracers Anymore? I'll get to it. But I want to show you why you at least should take it seriously when you hear them talking about them wanting to discuss with you options when you test positive and be able to have conversations with people who test positive in their homes. That's what they mean by conversations. Next. And finally.
So newsflash, Pharaoh doesn't get to dictate to God's people how they worship their God. God's the one that defines the parameters. God's the one that communicates His will and His plan for His church, not Egypt. And I'm telling you right now, with this cease and desist letter in my hand, the Bible says to the New Testament church, not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is, but so much the more as you see the day approaching. And the closer we get to Jesus coming back, the more church we ought to be having, not less church. Now that's God's parameters. So I'm tearing up this cease and desist order right here, and I'm telling you right now, we're going to do it God's way. We're going to do it God's way. God tells us how to worship Him. Nobody else gets to do that.
And that's a church with 100 people in it in a 600-seat building. So it's not like he had people jammed in there. Not that he doesn't have the right to anyway. They're going to single him out. Good for him. I hope these people sue the living pants off of everybody in their government. Hope he gets to build a gold-plated church with the money he extracts from the governor personally. Good job, Pastor. Why don't you have to worry about contact tracing? I read an article about Maryland announcing contact tracing. And the way it's going to work whatever apps they're going to use. And how many of you saw the new app? I thought I sent it to the guys, but I must have forgot. Anybody get the new app on your cell phone or update on your phone? 13.5 or whatever it is on the iPhone, that it allows data collection for COVID-19 apps. So what do you have your average Christian do when they read that? I don't know about just regular old conservatives. Christians love to stay in defeat, you know. Did you hear what they're doing in our state? And then they're going to do that. They love to always be talking about what somebody's going to do to them. The devil's doing this. We need to pray. Let me tell you something. The more you watch these people give press conferences, do you actually think you can outsmart them? So how does the contact tracing work? People who voluntarily download the app when they test positive, it'll collect data from who their phone has been in contact with. Let me ask you a question. Do you have on settings on your phone a way to block Bluetooth? Yes. It uses Bluetooth. So shut your Bluetooth off. Secondly, there's 2 apps you can get. I'll just deal with one today. It's pertinent to what I'm talking about. It's an app called Lockdown. When you get that app, it's $50 a year. You turn a firewall on, and you turn a tunnel on. The tunnel bounces your phone signal all over the country. For example, I'm going to check my internet speed right now, and it's going to read where the signal's coming from. Let's see where it says it's coming from. Finding optimal server. Ashburn, Virginia. You know what it said earlier today? Somewhere in Colorado. It bounces my signal all over the place. That's an app called Lockdown. So you spend, instead of worrying and freaking out, you download that app, and it'll screw up everybody that has the government app. Do you also think they're not going to invent some kind of case that goes over your phone? Like I have on my passport. My passport has a chip in it. You can get a case for it that makes the chip never is transmitted outside of it. You think they're not going to come out with something like that for a phone? So when you're walking around, and then if a restaurant says, we need your name and address, if they don't make you show ID, write whatever you want. If they make you show ID, eat at home. Tell the restaurant, I'll never step foot in your restaurant again, and I'll tell everybody I know not to either. And there won't be restaurants, and then the restaurant owners will start putting pressure on them. I want you to write something in the comments, and I know I'm not teaching, this is Check the News, but write, there's always a way out. If you use your brain, you can always outthink the opposition. You think a government can't even build a healthcare website. You think they're going to build an app faster than the private sector will build apps to counteract it? And I'll tell you something, until they get the contact tracing thing finished with, I'm not telling anybody who I am. Whenever I go to get my hair cut, nobody's going to know who I am. I'd be careful who you let in your house. Okay, so then let me deal with the final thing why you don't have to worry about contact tracing. So if someone tests positive and they say they've had contact with you, a state like Maryland, which there's only a few states still committed to doing this, but a state like Maryland said they're going to call. They can deal with 1,000 cases a day, but how they can deal with them is by calling the people on the list. And they said it'll come up on your caller ID as COVID or something like that, like COVID tracker. So what do? You don't answer the phone. What do you do if they knock at your door? Let me just tell you, from somebody that just had a reporter knock on my door that I never knew they were coming, had a microphone jammed in my face when I answered the door, the days of you answering the door, not knowing who's knocking or ringing the bell, ended yesterday. I had a family member waiting outside for a while, ringing the doorbell to pick Camila up. I texted our family group chat. I said, if this is one of you ringing the bell, you need to text me because you're going to be waiting outside for a while. But the days of me just answering the door are over. And you never why can they do that in Canada and can't do it in the United States? Amendment 2. Not going to happen. Can't take your kids from you. Can't forcefully remove you from your home. That's why the framers of the Constitution put the Second Amendment in. It's a guard for all the other amendments. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. They didn't write that in case deer ever rose up against us so we could hunt. They wrote it for situations like that. But I'm going to tell, so, you don't have to let, you think some government employee that just got hired and trained, they're not allowed to bust your door down and stuff. And, if people can dodge warrants for years, you think you can't dodge a COVID tracker for 2 weeks? Because once 2 weeks is expired, 2 weeks expired. So you're off the list anyway. That's worst case scenarios. COVID tracker calls you on the phone, tell them they have the wrong number, that person moved years ago, and you're sick of getting calls for that person. Outsmart them. But don't ever let it get to that point, forcible quarantines and in your own, removal from the home. Well, that's lying, though. Let me ask you a question. In the book of Exodus, when the midwives lied to save the baby boys that were being born, did God curse them or bless them? Read it. Exodus chapters 1 through 3. Exodus chapter 1. The midwives said the women are giving birth faster than we can get to the boys, and God blessed them. You think the people who wouldn't tell the authorities that Anne Frank was in the attic, or Anne Frank was hiding Jews in the attic, you think they're in hell because they didn't tell the truth to the Nazis? When people are coming against your freedom, looking to take your children out of the home without your permission and stuff, all bets are off. But it's not going to get to that point. As my friend Justin Hart wrote in California, what did he say? He said the problem contact tracers are going to have is there's not enough cases. The virus is dying out. Virologists are telling you that. Epidemiologists are telling you that. The arc peaked a week before Easter to Easter. And it's falling sharply now because there's not even many news stories about it anymore. When they report deaths, remember those are collected from deaths they missed over the past few weeks, plus deaths are people that were sick weeks ago. So we'll know, as much as we hate to saying wait 2 weeks, we'll know in 2 weeks you could probably expect to see a severe drop-off. Don't download apps that the government wants you to download, and keep some kind of blocker on your phone where you're not being tracked. But that's only a few states. Ashley Quinn said they're closing the testing center in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania within a few days. Barely been open a month. That's right, Anna. Police can ping your phone, but not if you're using it. And I'll tell you another thing. If it got serious, and I'm not saying I don't think it's going to get to this point in America because there's not the demand for it. If you were having a spike in cases, then there would be a desire to have contact tracers to shut it down. But I'll tell you, I'd be happy to not travel with this. Keep it in my home. Lisa says turn location service off. Absolutely. Police can ping your phone provided you leave it as it is. They cannot ping your phone if you download a simple app called Lockdown, which does not allow anybody ads, doesn't show where your true IP is. Doesn't allow any data about what tower you're using. A good app, Lisa said, what's a good app to have as a blocker? And I'm not sponsored by these people, don't get anything. The best one is Lockdown. And then I'll tell you another one. There's an app called Signal that's a messaging, video chat, and call service. The NSA doesn't have access to any of that data to record the calls. Christina said, what about churches that name the names of their attendees? They're not going to have many people coming for very long. Soon there won't be any names to give in. Just let the free market take care of things. If there's churches in town and one collects people's names to turn them to the government and the others don't, which one do you think the people are going to go to? Just let me tell you, just let things take their course and it'll go against government control. Always remember this. God created people to be free. This is what I'll close with. God created people to be free. Even God can't control people. Think of that. Even God can't control people. And until the actual mark of the beast, any effort to try to control a population always fails because people were not meant to be controlled. Particularly American people. There's something in the DNA from the Revolutionary War that's in America that it just doesn't work. You can outsmart them. Don't just repeat what you hear. They're making us do this. No, nobody make you do anything. Use your brain. You can get around it. Page says, yes, for now, but there's always a way for iOS to turn your... Then get rid of go back to a flip phone. Keep a laptop in your house. Never let the phone leave your house. They won't know where you've been all day. Use your brain. If you have to sacrifice taking your phone with you, who cares? I did that for 21 years of my life. No phone was with me. Kathy says if you have AT&T service, you can no longer turn your phone off. They can track you even if you shut off. That's for all phones. Leave your phone home. You know. But the apps, I'm telling you, they work. They scramble they scramble your location data. If I connect to the internet right now, it says I'm in Ashburn, Virginia. Let me try it again and see what it does. And there's going to be a huge market for this stuff. Try it one more time. Finding optimal server. Yep. Still has me in Ashburn, Virginia. When I was at my house, it had me like in Kansas or somewhere. Burner phones. That's right. No, we already covered it. Trump announced yesterday that there will be no mandatory vaccinations. And when he talked about the military, it was helping to distribute the vaccine quickly for people who wanted it. Remember, when you see headlines, people like stuff to... Conservatives are an easy group to just keep as an audience by keeping them ever... And coming up next, you're never going to believe what the government has planned to do to you next. They like bad news. Christians love bad news. They don't love... I'm amazed they even have an audience on this show to give you good news and a way out, because people aren't interested in that. Oh, man, we're in trouble. We really need to pray. You can't be controlled. You look at that Governor Prickster in Illinois, you think you can't outthink that guy? Guy probably only has 3% of the blood that's supposed to be going to his brain from clogged arteries. Just relax and use your brain. God will always show you the way out. There's tons of privacy-concerned people who have made apps to stop all those things. Find out who they are. You know, so, AT&T, then switch off of AT&T. Find a way instead of just discussing what people are doing against you. Can't be tracked. Hope I cheered you up. These people don't have the power to go against how God created you to be. And most of them are realizing they don't even have the power to try right now. Their whole states are turning against them. You think they're going to introduce a mandatory tracking app? They've pushed as far as they can go and pushed past as far as they can go, and the people aren't having it. This is my newest news magazine called The Stand. A decision to shine the light of the gospel, whatever the cost. And in this, I outline why we've made the decisions we've made to buck what the government wants done, which was very unpopular at the time, and now a lot more people have joined the fight. This is probably the best magazine we've ever produced. I have in here 6 reasons why the church shouldn't shut down, ever. A lot of great pictures and a lot of other announcements. I'm going to send that to everybody who gives an offering of any size today. That's correct, Daryl Ridgely. He said the government's in retreat. I'm going to send this to anybody who gives today to help us feed 1,000 children in the morning. That'll go to everybody. What t-shirt should we give out tonight? How about the OK Karen t-shirt? You want to go outside and just let people in the aisles know you're not to be messed with? This is a good shirt, without saying a word. We'll send this shirt to everybody who gives tonight, along with the magazine. And then the first 10 people, I'll send you the Minister's Topical Bible. So the first 10 will get 3 thank you gifts, and everybody else will get 2. The Stand, our magazine, news magazine, and the OK Karen t-shirt. It'll look great on you. You'll probably make friends wearing it. People in the know will know. When no one's looking, they'll come over and give you a hug. Hashtag donate on Facebook. $RT Give on Cash App if you're in the United States. Super chat like you've seen a lot of people do. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Judy. And if all those convenient ways, thank you, Mystic Maverick. And thanks for being you. Thank you. That's right, LaJoy. See, I like how LaJoy thinks on YouTube. Pastor Danny, love you, man. Looking forward to seeing you before too long. If all the convenient ways are too difficult, you can just go, oh, Danny Hanna. I was thinking Danny Haas for some reason. Good to see you, man. You're in Nevada? You can go to revivaltoday.com and click give as well. And then we've had a ton of people mailing in their offerings. So if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, go to Revival Today, P.O. Box 7, Prosperity, Pennsylvania, 15329. Revival Today, P.O. Box 7, Prosperity, PA, 15329. He's going to love it, Shalana. Oh, that's great. I saw the strip's probably going to open up June 1st. That's right. Heather said for the Brave app for web browsing. Which beach, Phyllis? Thank you, Faith. I'll give you about 30 more seconds to give. We'll feed 1,000 kids when by the time you're waking up in the morning. Many of them will have their only meal for the day. And then everybody who gives, please take that second step and go to revivaltoday.com/offer. Alyssa. Oh, that's great, LaJoy. Love you. Love all of you, believe it or not. If you'll take that second step and make sure you get something and get the right thing. Because we have broadcasting all day, so they don't know necessarily which program you're responding to. Thank you, Jamie. Due to your ministry, I've been healed. Praise the Lord. Glad to hear it. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you for everybody who watched and listened. Thank you for being their peace. Thank you that as they go to sleep, they feel your peace. Those that are watching as they're just waking up, I pray you give them the best day they've ever had. I thank you that your word says, surely goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our life. We receive that today. Thank you for miracles today. We give you this day in Jesus' name. If you're watching, and like many people during this lockdown, they have prayed with me to give their life to Jesus Christ. You've seen all this happen, and you know. Number one, the world is coming to an end. Number two, you're not ready to meet God. I want you to be ready to meet Him. You can have a relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ. It's very simple. Repent of your sin and receive Jesus Christ. If you've never done that, pray that with me right now. Say this out loud. Heavenly Father, I admit I'm a sinner. I believe in my heart you raised Jesus from the dead. I confess with my mouth Jesus is Lord and my Savior. Come into my heart, Lord Jesus. Right now, I receive forgiveness. I receive salvation. In Jesus' name. Amen. If you prayed that and meant it from your heart, you're born again. Write I did if you did in the comments. I'd love to see who prayed. And then go to revivaltoday.com and click I just got saved. And I have material I produced for people who just gave their lives to the Lord. So I'll send that to you. Revivaltoday.com, I just got saved. Love you. Stay in touch. We check the news every night. I finish my teaching series on how to safeguard your life from the attacks of the devil tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. New York City time. We love you so much. You're welcome, Barbara. I'll be here all the time. You're welcome, Shay. Why would you say okay to Karen? She really needs prayer. You do know Karen's a fictitious character, right? So maybe you're on conflicting medications or something. Good night now.
The Mighty series is a collection of children's books taken directly from the Word of God, arming this generation with the gospel, providing the undiluted Word of God, and empowering your family to live godly. The Mighty series shop is where you will find many of our products, including our 3 books: the biblical account of how Daniel overcame the lion's den, how David slew Goliath, and how Esther rescued God's people. There is also a coloring book and new releases coming soon. We can rise up as Bible-believing Christians and raise our children to be the men and women God has created them to be. Visit themightyseries.com to start shopping today.
The power of God is for you to be blessed, then to take dominion over the earth and be a blessing to your
Alexa, play Revival Today Radio.
You are now listening to Revival Today Radio.
Give Jesus a great big hand clap all over the auditorium.